Hi everybody, and thank you for joining me today. Continuing to work on pink flowers. I think I finished the petals that were at the top flower. That's at the very top of this pass. The bottom of it was in there, and then I'm now working on the open flower that's in this pass. I'm reaching the edge of that, and then I'll be working on the more closed flower after that, but not today. So you can see I've got a kind of a weird indentation going here just because of the way the colors went before I moved my frame. So now I'm just filling in this area. I'm not starting at 0 because I had some problems. I stitched a bunch in the wrong place, which I almost never do, but I did today. So what you gonna do? Time to start over. Try and get it right this time. Oh my. Sometimes I know what I'm doing, but I guess today is not one of those days. Oh dear. So I said a bunch of stuff. I hope I won't repeat from last time, but it's hard to remember what I talked about today versus last time. So if I repeat myself as usual, sorry. Okay. Make sure I do not do that again. As you can see, there's a big indentation here and a big one here, and I started stitching over here, and that was completely wrong. And I only realized it when I suddenly went, oh wait, there should be another indentation to the left of me, and there isn't. That means it's in the wrong spot. This kind of little stair step here. It's like the same shape, so. I didn't sleep that great last night. It was really loud, windy, and it still is today. It was one of those days you have to keep your hand on the car door as you're opening it, or the wind will whip it right out of your grip, which is not good for it. You don't want to smack cars that are next to you. So if you can hear that background noise, that's what's going on. So Canada Post is on strike, which kind of sucks. Again, they did that again. They did that last November, October, November. Looks terrible. Let's see if I can get this to smooth out properly. There we go. Okay. Anyway, well, when the strike ended, they were ordered back to work, so they were still undergoing negotiations, and while they were still delivering mail, they weren't doing overtime anymore. Things were taking longer to reach places. Technically, that's considered a strike action. But right now they're on complete strike now. Everything's halted. And kind of sucks because I had some things I was waiting for in the mail, and now will not get them until after this strike ends. It really sucked for a lot of people. Last time they said people's passports and stuff were either not being sent or they were in the mail and not moving, and that's no good. I had something I had to return to Amazon, and it has until end of November to get there, so hopefully, because I didn't think, they gave me the option of courier label or the Canada Post label, and I wasn't really paying attention to the news, so I picked the Canada Post because it's more convenient for me. There's a post box that's sort of right in the couple blocks from my house, or I could drop it off at the mall outlet, which is a 5-minute walk away, that kind of thing. Whereas the courier, it's all the way across town, and I don't like going there because to get in and out of their parking lot is very tight, and also the visibility is really bad. And I had to go there for work at my last job to drop things off more than once. And it sucked. Like, by the time you can pull out far enough to see, the hood of your vehicle is in the street. And if somebody's coming along at a fair pace, they're going to hit you, especially if it's icy. Right now it isn't, but there were a few close calls, and so I didn't like it at all. But if I'd realized there was a strike imminent, I would have done that. I just did not think. That's what I get for not checking. But they're striking over in Ontario. They were talking about ending door-to-door delivery. So they would switch to community post boxes. And I don't know if they're still doing it, but I remember years ago they were saying that people with disabilities who would not be able to... Oh, that's over. Yeah, I parked that wrong. I parked that over 2 from the grid line, and it should have been 3. There we are. Anyway, they said that people who couldn't easily use community post boxes for whatever reason, disability, lack of transportation, that sort of thing, because maybe you're elderly and it's harder to get around, would be able to apply to still get their mail to the door. So, but of course it would greatly reduce the number of carriers needed. Yeah, I don't know if they're still doing that, but they were doing that. I think the last strike, or maybe the strike before, they were talking about it. But once again, the rural areas would be disproportionately affected. They were talking about closing down some of the older post offices, and for people who live far away from town, that sucks. I remember because now you can pay for parcels online and print out a label, but you still need to drop it off, right? And if there's no post box nearby, then, or if your parcel's too big to fit in the post box, you need to take it to an actual, like, postal outlet. I think actually I'm going to do this one over here. So kind of just working across this whole big area here, back and forth. But anyway, because I remember last time there were a lot of people saying, oh, I don't even use the Canadian Post Office. I use Amazon. They said, yeah, but if you live far away from a major city, a lot of times the post is still even for couriers or whatever, a lot of times they would get handed off by the courier to the post office. So if the courier itself has to actually travel all the way to your little town, you can end up paying more, because that was sort of the whole deal. If they could hand it off to Canada Post, who's going to have to go there anyway, it helped keep the price down a little bit. And again, small businesses get disproportionately affected by this, especially those that rely on letter mail. If whatever you're selling is small enough to fit in the letter mail designation. I was annoyed though. We lived in a tiny little town once, and I was trying to make a go of selling some handcrafts online, and our printer really sucked, so I had to go. I couldn't buy it at home, but I used the calculator to tell me how much. And then I went to our little general store / post office in town, and they would always charge me an extra $2 to $5 more. And I said, really? And I had one time the guy said, well, it's a parcel. I said, I know it's a parcel. I used the calculator on the Canada Post website. Why is it more than what they said? So, like, if it said $14 on the website, I shouldn't be paying you $20, right? And so it got to, my husband worked in the city that was 45-minute drive away at the time. So a lot of times I sent him to mail it for me since he'd be there anyway. And same thing, because they had the little general store and stuff, but everything cost way more. And their milk always went bad, like 5 or 6 days before the sell-by date. So I was not impressed. If I have to pay, 30% more or something, it better not give me 30% less time to use it. I remember, because when we first moved there, you had to have a post office box because they didn't do door-to-door delivery in that town. It was like 300 people. So everything just went to the general store / post office. And they would have to assign you a P.O. box once you moved in. And it wasn't like P.O. Box 1 belongs to this address and kind of thing. And so you just said general delivery. And then anyway, of course, after they assigned me a P.O. box, they wanted you to change it, and they would put the stamp on the mail of update address or whatever. And I remember at the time we were with this one bank, and I updated the address, but they must have had certain promotional stuff on a different mailing list. So I would get the piece of mail that was still marked general delivery, and they would have the stamp over it like 8 times. It's like, guys, I know. I've called them. I've told them half a dozen times what my new address is, and they always say, oh, yeah, we got that updated everywhere. I don't have any control about where they're pulling these addresses from for the promotional stuff. Like, sorry, I know you're getting annoyed, but what else am I supposed to do about it? Your passive-aggressive stamping is getting a little annoying. Of course, then we moved, and we had to switch banks too, because when we moved to the city, after we've been living there a couple of years, so it goes to a completely different city, and so I don't know if they're still trying to send us junk mail there, but it ain't my problem, and I don't see it anymore, so I really don't care. Yeah, they weren't very knowledgeable there either, because I remember when we were moving and I asked them, I said, I want the change of address, the forwarding. You pay for like 6 months and it forwards all your mail to your new address. And he gave me the forms for a hold, which is like if you're going on vacation or something, they will hold it at the post office. And then if you're going on vacation for like an extended amount of time, people will do that so that your mail doesn't pile up. It's like, that's not what I asked you for. So I ended up going online and finding it that way, because I didn't feel like going back and trying to argue with the guy that that's not what I asked you for. Oh dear. Talking about junk mail too, I said, at what point do you stop getting other people's mail? Because we have been here coming on to 20 years. It'll be 20 years next year. And the other day I got mail for somebody else. I don't know if they actually used to live here, or if maybe somebody signed up for something and they got the address wrong, but I sent it return to sender, not at this address, so that's frustrating though. That doesn't always work. I remember one time we kept getting these collection notices from this place, and I kept writing back that not at this address, return to sender, and they kept sending them. And finally I opened it because there wasn't really much information on the outside. So I opened the mail so that I could find the some contact info, because it didn't have like a phone number or anything. It just had a return address, but didn't have like a name or anything. I think this was a long time ago, but anyway. And so I phoned them and said, like, this person doesn't live here. They haven't lived here for 2 years. You can keep sending these notices, but it's not going to do you any good, kind of thing. I had to leave a message because nobody answered. And then they sent one the next time. Just like, and this was when we were living in military housing. So my husband said, if any repo guys show up trying to take anything, just call the MPs. Because he had that happen to him before too. Someone tried to take his TV because his roommate owed money. And, oh, I parked that on the wrong side again. And yeah. Of course, I mean, I understand people are going to say all the time, oh, that's not the right one, to try and keep you from taking stuff. But it really wasn't the right one. And so he said, yeah, he had to call the MPs and have them escorted off. Oh gosh, talking about MPs. So I worked with this lady who she was married to a guy in the military when she had, they had young kids. They were grown by the time she told me this story. But anyway, she said one night, they lived in military housing on the base. And one night she was outside, kind of on the porch, after the kids went to bed. And her son later came out and said, oh, I thought I was all alone, so I called the babysitter. And she kind of like, well, you don't know the number of the babysitter. Like, what are you talking about? Like, she was right there. And he says, oh, she said, who did you try? He says, I don't know. He's like 4 or 5. A woman and a man. Oh, okay. And then a few minutes later, emergency services shows up because he must have called 911, or he must have talked to the operator and the operator forwarded it to 911 or something. But she said because they were on the actual military base, they had to be escorted by the MPs. So she says, here it is at like 10 o'clock at night, and everybody's out there at their windows looking, because here comes the MPs escorting the cops to her house. And of course they found out, okay, this was all just a misunderstanding. The kids were not left alone at home. You know, mom was right there on the porch, and kiddo panicked. And anyway, so she says this happened in like the summer. And so she says months later they were having the base holiday party, and she opens up her Secret Santa and pulls out, there's a list, and it says on it Ace baby, or like Acme babysitting services or something. Oh, so it's like everybody had not forgotten about the whole incident. Oh dear. And she said, like, it's funny, like, I was right there. If he'd taken a few more steps, he would have seen me on the porch, and if he wanted to drink a water or whatever, I would have got him one. Oh, kids. Mm-mm. I guess this was when you didn't have to know your address. They can tell from your phone line, the enhanced 911. I remember when that was a new thing. Because when we were kids, I remember my parents had, I actually remember we didn't even have 911 where we lived at first. And so my parents had taught us that they had programmed the speed dial. So speed dial 1 was like the fire department, and speed dial 2 was the police. And then we had to practice saying our address so that we could tell them if there ever was an emergency to get them there, because they had no other way of knowing where you were. But now they can trace your call and see your address. Technology keeps changing. started at 101. However, there's not many colors here, as you can see. So I should imagine we can put up a pretty good number even after you take out the ones where I messed up. I decided to just start again because I figured sitting there watching me frog a bunch of stitches was not going to be very fun. Oh, and I've passed 84%. Woohoo! I was hoping to pass that in September, but that didn't happen. But I might reach 86 by the end of October. We shall see. Yeah, talking about technology changing, like now you can pay bills on your phone and even deposit checks on with your phone. Stuff I remember when I was a kid, going to the bank was being part of errand day. Bank, groceries, gas. We didn't mind so much because there was one grocery store my mom took us to that actually had a play area. So that was fun. And she always went there because on certain days, I think it was like every third Monday of the month or something like that, they had triple coupon day. So if you had a $1 coupon, instead they gave you $3 off and such. So we got that, and then we got to get a free cheese stick too. So we were always asking if that was the store Mom was going to, because that was fun. They had a ball pit and climbing equipment and stuff, so we loved it. And you could get popcorn too. It was funny though, because my mom would always say, "Don't eat it all." So we'd have a little bag of popcorn. We'd leave like one kernel. Well, I didn't eat all of it, Mom. Kids, right? They're natural lawyers. It was like there was one, she told her kids, they were going outside to play in the rain, and she told them not to step one foot in a puddle. And so the kids lay down with their feet outside of the puddle and splashed in the puddle. Like, took it totally literally. I was like, I remember when my son was a toddler one time and we were visiting his grandparents, and he wanted to touch something, and my mother-in-law said, "Don't touch." And so he reached over and he grabbed his dad's finger and started using it to poke at it. Oh. Well, I didn't actually touch it. It doesn't count, right? Rascal. Okay, so that's over 100 stitches on camera. I do like these big blocks because they go really fast. It's nice to see so much progress happen so quickly. this color here with the darker, I'm setting aside for now. I'll come back to and fill that in later. I'm just going to follow sort of this, at least for the moment. Follow these colors for now. I might decide to come back up and start filling that in, but we'll see. Because sometimes I do that. I make a plan, but I don't always stick to it. Go with the flow. The only problem with these bigger blocks is I have to be careful not to overdo it. Because I've done that before and I couldn't stitch for days because my arms were on fire. So sometimes, even though it would go quicker to do these colors, I might actually come in and fill that in to kind of break it up. Because I find stopping to switch colors and stuff forces me to take sort of a little break in between from making the same motion over and over, because that's what causes the pain. Doesn't look quite right, does it? Oh yeah, that's quite twisted around itself, that's why. To let this untwist. So that is what I might do. I don't want to have to quit stitching early, because I know you guys prefer longer videos when I can manage them. And that's what I might do, is just park this here, switch it up. Even though I don't have to. I don't mind if sometimes if it kind of leaves, as you can see obviously, if it leaves kind of a strange shape to fill in later, but I may just change colors because it gives my arms a break. You wouldn't think it would make that much of a difference, but I have found that it does. There's a shadow here. As I said, I think this is where that last big flower is coming in. There's a lot of shading on it. Ooh, goodness, caught that on my pinky finger there. Yeah, I have a few products that I hope are going to last until I can order them again. I can't get them in store. And I don't want to pay extra for a courier, although there is one that usually I have it shipped to my house, but they do have the option to ship to the store and then you pick it up, so that's what I might do. I'm lazy, but I'm also cheap. I like having things delivered right to my door, but if it'll save me a few bucks, I will. Then do a couple of these colors that aren't as many stitches in a row, and then back to the big block, so that alternating back and forth kind of helps me avoid causing myself pain. All right, back to this big section here. Yeah, like I said, mega windy. That's my oven vent cover flapping in the wind there. Oh dear. Nope, I can't count. Yeah, that was wrong. Right there, I had it over one stitch too far. Okay, so back up to this little hollow here. Let's put my phone on Do Not Disturb there. Seem to be doing that a lot, I tell you. So we should definitely pass the center of this piece. The center is like right here. So this month I'll go well past that, I'm sure. So I usually try to stitch to a more confined area when I'm making a video, but today just kind of didn't work out that way. Okay, make sure I'm stitching in the correct spot, not like earlier, where I made a mess of it. Then I'll do these. Just kind of starting in the middle there and going back and forth kind of means I waste a little less thread than if I started here and then had to park here. Oops. Yeah, I can immediately tell from the sound of that. Something was not right. Let's see if I can pick it out or not. Ah, yeah, good. It wasn't too tight, so I was able to get it apart. goodness, there it goes again. Missed the correct spot there. There we are. Almost did it again. All right, I think I can manage one more stitch right there out of this thread. There we are. I'm actually going to cross these going back this way so that the thread will end up kind of in the middle, because that's where the next stitches I have to do with this color start. I think I'll have to take a break soon and stretch. I didn't get all these stitches on camera because of my mistake. I started filming again, but I've done quite a lot since I sat down on the couch. My neck especially is bothering me. I don't get to see my physiotherapist slash acupuncturist until end of October, so I gotta kind of be extra careful with my movements until then, because I don't want things to get locked up. That is the worst. Right now they're just sore and complaining a bit. So I think I'll do these ones I've highlighted, and then I think that's where I'm gonna call it a day. All right, so 327. I did do 101 of those before the beginning of the session, but still pretty happy with that number. Thank you so much for joining me today, and hope to see you here next time. Thanks, everyone. Bye.